Welcome to Scriptural Science, a presentation of Truth and Life Institute, Boston, Massachusetts, and Oba, Nigeria. The following is a subsection of the book. Ask what you can do for the kingdom of God and not just what God can do for you. Written and published by Ifeanyi Chukwujima, scriptural scientist and a servant of God. This subsection's ID is Ask What You Can Do 2:8b. Marriage is the key to morality. How to make marriage work is not a business a government has any authority in. No one and no worldly institution has any authority when it comes to marriage. Only God has authority over marriage. If it is called marriage anywhere in the world, God is squarely at the center of it. It does not matter who is getting married. It does not matter what religion the people who are getting married belong to. It also does not matter that they do not have a religion. As long as a man and a woman anywhere in the world comes together to live together, have children and share a common life, they are becoming married, and God gets the invitation automatically, not only to approve and bless the union, but also to become an indispensable part of that union. Mankind does not get it. Only God does marriage. And he never leaves marriage to any human beings or human institutions to decide. Marriage is God's through and through, because he is the one who joins two separate flesh and two separate spirits together to become one in marriage. And he is the all-essential third party in every marriage. And he is the glue that holds all marriages together. Marriage is not a religious thing, nor is marriage a civic thing. Marriage is the first church of God on the planet Earth. Churches everywhere consists of these little churches, marriages, that routinely come together to worship God together. When you get involved in a marriage, you are joined by God to the person you are married to, and everything that God requires from married people now applies to the two of you. There is no escape from it. It is automatic. The way no human being invites God to come into them and reside inside them so they can have life and live is the same exact way any man and woman who decide to merge there lives together to become one, do not have to invite God to come and unite them as one. God automatically shows up, approving or disapproving, because marriage is God's thing. God is not only a witness to every marriage on the earth. God unites any one man and any one woman in marriage, in every language and culture, and remains in them, between them, and all around them for as long as they are loyal to their marriage. As the husband has a real and substantive existence, and his wife has a real and substantive existence, their marriage also has a real and substantive existence. The husband may change his mind and become disloyal to his wife and their marriage, and the wife may change her mind and become disloyal to her husband and their marriage, but their marriage always remains loyal to each of them, because their marriage is anchored to God, the same exact way the church is anchored to God. Marriage is the key to morality. That is why God promptly created marriage to unite the human family and keep the human family from faltering. As a matter of fact, God created the woman so that he could create marriage. It is marriage, not the woman, that prompted God to proclaim in Genesis 2 verse 18, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him," Genesis 2 verse 18. The woman is a consequence of God's conception of marriage. She is God's precious gift, which God gives to the man through marriage. In other words, God conceived the church the moment God conceived marriage. Marriage is the first church on the earth and will forever remain the foundation of the church. The surpassing importance of marriage is also showcased for mankind to see in the coming of God's only begotten Son into the world. Jesus Christ came into the world, into the marriage of Joseph and the Virgin Mary. In essence, Jesus Christ came into the world via the church, marriage, which God had instituted at the Garden of Eden upon the creation of the woman, Genesis 2 verses 18 to 24. First, God decided that there was going to be marriage in Genesis 2 verse 18. Later in Genesis 2 verse 20, God declared that a suitable spouse for the man has not yet been found, thus unequivocally telling the world that God conceived marriage before God conceived the woman for the marriage with the man. That is God's scientific precision at its best. God's saying something that sounds like nothing, when in actuality, He is revealing a deep and profound mystery to mankind. A helper suitable for him, Genesis 2, verse 18, makes it appear that God conceived both the woman and the marriage simultaneously, with a helper referring to the woman and the woman's role in marriage. Closer examination of Genesis 2, verse 20, but for Adam no suitable helper was found, clearly indicates that the woman and marriage were conceived separately, as they were created separately. Marriage was conceived by God before Genesis 2, verse 18, and the woman was conceived by God right after Genesis 2, verse 20. God's comment, "It is not good for the man to be alone," Genesis 2, verse 18, announces to mankind that God had plans to give companionship to the man. And suitable for him tells us the nature of that companionship, which God confirmed as marriage in Genesis 2 to 24. God's declaration that the man he had created, Adam, was lonely and in need of a companion, Genesis 2, verse 18, is a revelation to mankind that by that very instant, marriage had already been conceived by God, and the search for the right companion had begun. The infinitely resourceful God is never out of anything. He was simply establishing something for mankind to grasp by loudly proclaiming, but for Adam no suitable helper was found, Genesis 2, verse 20. And upon that declaration, God went to work and created Eve, Genesis 2, verse 20. Then, God promptly took Eve to Adam and united them in marriage. God does not search for anything as if someone has to provide it to him, but for Adam no suitable helper was found, Genesis 2, verse 20, was simply God communicating a highly important truth to mankind, God's separate conceptions of marriage, and the woman for the marriage. Since the Bible has declared that the woman is a gift to the man, marriage, therefore, is the occasion for that gift, a helper suitable for him. God did not create the Bible to remind himself of what he did. God is infinite intelligence in himself. God created the Bible to show human beings what God did, the order in which God did it, where he felt that it was important for us to know, and what his actions and activities were designed to teach us. God is not into empty talks. He never utters a word unless the word means something profound. And any word which comes out of the mouth of our holy God never returns to God without achieving what God had uttered the word for. His purpose always stands. The Bible declaring that a suitable helper for Adam was not found was no slip of tongue. The declaration was also not recorded in the Bible to denote that God was at any time confounded as to what to do and how to do it. God was simply setting the record straight for mankind. That declaration was designed by God to communicate to mankind not only the sequence of events in the creation of the human family, but also the seriousness of marriage and marriage as intended. Purpose for all human lives and human salvation through the end of time. The suitability of the woman for the man was all the rage for God. The matchup must be perfect to produce the perfect marriage which God had planned for mankind's flawless life on the planet Earth. Marriage was intended by God to offer mankind a clear direction in life for our peace and our salvation. Marriage, therefore, was not conceived by God simply to give Adam just about any companion. And God did not give a companion to Adam for companionship's sake either. God created marriage for mankind's perfect morality, which will guarantee peace on earth and goodwill towards all human beings and ultimately usher mankind to its eternal salvation and life with God and his Christ. In marriage, as in all the other human relationships, there is a clear and distinct pathway to achieving success, good morality, afforded by the perfect humanity which Jesus Christ regained for us from the sinful nature. There is authority, and there are subjects to authority. Then there is love, to blunt the sharp edges of authority. There is also mercy, to forgive and tame freedom and make freedom surrender to authority. Love, through mercy, helps the subjects under authority to keep their eyes on Jesus Christ and the objective which marriage was intended by God to achieve, morality. Your government may have issued you and your spouse a marriage license, but it was God who authorized your marriage and allowed it to take place. God spoils anything he disapproves of and prevents it from achieving meaningful purpose. So, if God allows a marriage, the marriage takes place. Otherwise, people can plan, but the event will never materialize. Your government issued license is an acknowledgement by your government that it knows about what you are doing. Your government may refuse to certify a marriage that violates its guidelines, but government does not approve marriage. Only God approves marriage. That God permits something to take place in the name of marriage does not mean that God approves it as marriage. When God approves, he blesses. God allows sins to happen even though he detests sin, because he had sworn to himself to give every human being freedom to exercise their free will. Therefore, God allows things that are not marriage to take place in whatever way people regard it, because God has given a choice to every human being to either obey God's commands and live in God's righteousness, or to reject God's commands, do as they choose, and live with whatever consequences that result from their actions. This is why the Bible says that everything is permissible, but not all are constructive or beneficial. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 23. Love calls for God to give everyone the freedom to choose. But since freedom challenges authority, love also demands accountability. God has given every human being the freedom to choose for themselves, but requires that all account to him for all their actions. If you believe that truth matters, you believe that God matters, because God is the truth. If you do not consciously acknowledge God, but believes that truth matters, you cannot know the truth unless you know God. Your society's value systems cannot substitute for the truth. Only the knowledge of God teaches anyone the truth. Otherwise, you may be passionately pursuing a fantasy in the name of truth. It is every human person's responsibility to uphold the truth. But if you do not know what the truth is, how can you uphold the truth? As Bernie Sanders rightly articulated, are your society's values untethered from morality? You cannot know unless you know what is moral to start with. Morality is a derivative of the truth. Therefore, the only thing that constitutes morality is obedience to the truth, commands of God and his Christ. Anything else is, well, anything else. Anyone who does not believe in God and obey the commands of God cannot ascribe to a moral life. Therefore, such a person's claim of morality has no basis in truth. We must not let the masses dictate what morality we must ascribe to. We must each obey the commands of God fully to have a moral life. God has always been and will forever be the majority in all the societies of the world, including yours. And because he is always the majority, people everywhere must always vote with God in all issues of life. Any vote cast with God is a vote cast for morality.